Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, and welcome to MK Vibe. It's going to be a podcast for the people, by the people.
So, Aji bhai, it took me a long time to actually realize that your name's not Aji. I was afraid to ask. When I learned what your name was, Itizaz Ahmad Tariq, I figured, okay, that's fine. It's pretty long.
Yeah.
I was watching this this kind of comedy satire clip recently, and just about American society, what it's like, and how big the sports culture is, and everything. It's by Key and Peele, right?
I'm familiar.
Seen it. There's one of the guys did like Obama's anger translator.
Yeah.
And they got some outrageous clips, but some of them are really nice. It gives you a interesting presentation of what society is like.
Yeah.
So they did one piece on what if teachers were represented as the sports stars.
Okay.
Right? Instead of Sports Center, it's called Teacher Center.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So that's the TV channel, and they're the hosts, and they're going through, like we got this number one pick out of some university, and the whole team from that school is super excited to pick up this calculus teacher.
Okay.
It's funny, but it's also like, what if it was like that? Like, what if the place where the importance should be, like that's where it was. And, they're talking about, oh, man, this person just went from being poor and their father was working 2 jobs to provide for them. They had no food. Now they're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
But that's happening in sports.
Yeah.
Right, which is just pure entertainment.
Yeah.
It's like unthinkable amounts of money being poured into this. And this is one type of entertainment. Then it kind of makes you reflect on how much vain activity there is, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. The scary thing is that so I was like watching some streaming service, I don't know which one, and there was like a commercial, right? And it was like a top NBC or like Sports Center like analyst, right? So they're like, dude, the slam dunking, like, it's like, oh, all this like playoffs, like all the sports like hype is going on. And then like, I'm like not paying attention, but I hear the guy say that, this is the time where you can just turn on the TV and forget about everything that's going on and just immerse yourself in the passion, in the fun and like camaraderie that's like being shown by these guys, putting it all on the line on the court.
Yeah.
And immediately all I could think of was like the Roman Coliseum and like the chariots and like everybody just sitting there like robots, like,
How much views does like Super Bowl get? Like 200 million people?
Yeah, it's outrageous. Like, and this is the thing. I grew up here. I love sports. I played American football.
Yeah.
I loved it. I played it, man. I got hurt. Every injuries, all that.
Yeah.
But at some point, I don't know when, I just stopped watching sports altogether. I couldn't even name a player on a team right now. And if my friends that grew up with me like heard that, they would be like, "What happened?" But at some point, it just clicked, man. I'm not saying like that we shouldn't enjoy like sports or like watch the Super Bowl or whatever. But like at some point, it is at the maximum vein, and the way society's heading, like it's just maxed out on like how they can distract you from like what you really should be focusing on. And like I was telling you earlier, like the lifestyle on the East Coast is like vastly different than like the different parts of the country, as well as in Canada.
Yeah.
And like even for example on the West Coast, when Hazur went, I don't know if it was like, I don't know which year it was, maybe 2014, 2015?
2013, I think.
2013?
2013.
So I was in college at the time, and I really wanted to go when Hazur was there, but I was in classes and stuff like that. But one of my good friends in the Jama'at was like, man, let's just go anyways. So we booked like a ticket and we went, but we went right after Hazur left, and the vibe was like, it was kind of depressing, but like
after
in the
Hazur leaves,
it's like the wind is just sucked out of the room.
Yeah.
Like people were rejuvenated. Hazur came, but the feeling when he left, they just were like, it was like, that's what we came into. And it was like really, really weird.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't know how else to like describe it, but a good friend of mine who's also a Murabbi, he's from LA.
Oh, okay.
Went through Jamia and everything. And like, I think like he'd probably be able to give us a good perspective, you know what I'm saying, of like how it was growing up in LA.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he might have been in Jama'at during that time when Hazur came, but at least like the perspective of if he was in Jama'at, if he was able to go back, and like I couldn't imagine like knowing that Hazur came to my hometown and I like wasn't able to be there. You know what I'm saying? So let's give him a ring and let's see his perspective and stuff.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's call him.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes.
Wa alaikum salam.
Well, Salam, Wajibai, Omar Saab, what's going on?
Alhamdulillah. How are you doing, Murabbi Saab?
Pretty good, pretty good.
So what's going on? Where are you right now?
I'm in Zion, man. We just had namaz. I just sat down, was taking care of a couple things, was on the phone. And then you guys hit me up.
Yeah.
Pretty much it.
So we were just talking about Hazur leaving.
Yeah.
Zion is a perfect example.
Yep.
So Hazur was there.
Talking about like Hazur leaving Zion?
Yeah, like when he came and visited, and then like what's the vibe like now?
Funny story. So I still remember. I think right after Zion, Hazur went to Dallas, and I remember like they came up to me and they were like, "Murabbi Saab, congratulations! Hazur came here, but make sure you stay back 3-4 days and make sure like everything's lined up. After the dust settles." And I was like, oh, man, because I had already booked my ticket. I was ready for Dallas. So then I was like, you know what? Let me do what I got to do. And I remember that when we were cleaning up after and like winding down, pulling down the tents, the whole 9 yards, that day after Hazur left Zion, it was the most depressing place to be in the United States. Like I remember I was like, can I just like book my ticket like right now and leave? It was so bad, honestly. Yeah. And I was like, I just want to be in Dallas. I don't want to feel this. This is just kind of, the energy that was there. And I still do this. I think we've had like since Hazur's left Zion, we've had so many people afterwards, who didn't get to come during that time. Like, we want to check out Zion. We want to check out Zion. So, and then I asked them, and then as well as the people who were there during Hazur's time, and then when they pull up into the driveway, into the mosque, and I just look at their face, and everybody's just like, oh my God, this is just so different. The same exact reaction, what I felt when Hazur left. So that's real. I agree with you.
Yeah. So when Hazur came to LA in like 2013, were you in Jama'at already at that time?
Yeah. I was in Jama'at. I remember that was a very epic time. That was amazing.
So you were able to go?
So there's a funny story there. I'm gonna take a long route there. Short answer, yes. Okay. But how it happened was crazy. I still remember like I think at the time it was exam times. So to give an example, in Jama'at, when exams are going on, it's like nothing else matters. Like to administration, to the principal, and due respect, right? They're trying to build that character. Like, hey, when you got something to do, don't get pulled away from different things. For example, we're 3 siblings. I got a sister. My sister was getting married during my exam times. That's when I worked out in Pakistan. And I remember I was like, I got to go. She's my only sister. They're asking me, can I please go? And they're like, look, from us, it's a no. But if you want, you can ask Hazur, try your luck there. So Hazur, I wrote to Hazur. I was like, Hazur, this is the situation. I'll study on the flight back, whatever. And answer came back was basically like, how are you going to study? Give priority to this. So I literally, for my sister's wedding, I Skyped in during exam time. I finished my exam. I just flew through it. I don't know what I wrote down. And I was like, I got to get the cat in. As soon as I got onto Skype, that was when, the whole shadi was going on. Yeah. So that's how I got to my sister's wedding, was via Skype. Like even our pictures, is like people holding up a laptop with me there just to get me into the pics. It was so sad. But again, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So now Hazur's coming to LA. For me, that's like Hazur's coming home. Yeah. You see where Hazur's going to be walking. That's where you grew up. Yeah. That was another level. And I think that was the first time in my understanding, and maybe Murabbi Saab knows, or before my time, I don't know, first time in Jama'at history, at least for Canada, that they ever split up the exam times. So we did half the exams. We had like 12, 13, I don't even remember how many, before the LA time. And I still remember we were able to go to LA. Then from there, we caught a flight to Calgary, and I think it was Vancouver, Calgary, that whole thing. Yeah. But first time in Jama'at history was when Khilafat came to LA, was when they were like, all right, we'll split the exams. After Hazur's tour, we'll do the rest. So for me, that was special. LA was special for me.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that's amazing.
So just like a brief like follow-up question, man. Like, what made you go to Jamia? I know you're asked that a million, over in time, and everyone has their like origin story, and I say that to preface it with this, that I wanted to go my entire life, up until like 17, 18, right? My grandfather, the late Maulana Tariq Saab, he served throughout the world, but especially in America, and was in Masjid Fazl in DC, and did a lot of missionary work, and so that was like I wanted to be a part of that. Yeah, and I remember I went to the first ever American Waqf No Boys Jamia visit. Ooh. And the late Mubarak Nazir Saab was there as well. Yeah, and he gave the most electrifying speech like that I've like ever witnessed, and like it just shook me like to my core.
Definitely, they would shake you.
And it was like 2007, 2008. I was in 11th grade, and I was just like, "This is it. This is what I'm doing." I was like, without a doubt, it didn't go the way I wanted, I'll bring that story up at another time, but back to you, man. Like, what made you do it?
So before I get into that, you brought up Mubarak Nazir Saab. It was funny that one time during Jamia, everybody knows, like when there was an event even in Toronto and Maple, and they knew Mubarak Nazir Saab was speaking, everybody would pull up and would just listen. Yeah. So I remember we had some event or something was going on, and some of the Jamia students were there. Some of us were not. I don't remember what was happening, but I pulled up to, like, I asked one of the guys, and I was like, "Hey man, how was his speech? Like, what happened?" And like the way he said it was just so funny. He was just like, Mubarak Nazir Saab just got on the stage. I have no idea what he spoke about. He took a cup up, and 5 minutes later, the whole room was crying. I was crying. I don't remember what it was, but it was epic. And that's what people are saying. Mubarak Nazir Saab could take anything, like a scrap of paper, and pull your heart towards it. So I know what you mean when you say he had that magic ability.
Definitely.
But to answer your question, when you said the like epic origin story, I remember like I used to almost not want to tell people, just because like everybody like people have some really powerful like cool stories, like what pulled them in. It's like electrifying, or like, man, like some even my classmates. I remember like late night we would talk about it. And I'm like, my story is not that cool. Like, I don't even want to tell you guys,
like, it's not that cool. We're putting you on the spot here.
Yeah. I'm sorry, retract. I'm sorry, you're breaking up, Murabbi Saab. I gotta let you go.
No, man, but I still remember one thing that stuck with me. Like, Waqf, or like dedicating your life to a cause. That's like very left field of what like we grow up with. Like, I still remember, like, second year Jamia, I came back and I was going, I caught up with some, like, high school friends, or I went to the gym somewhere and I saw some of them. And I hadn't really told them, like, what I was doing. That was the first time when I saw them and they're like, hey, like, what'd you do? Where are you going? What university? This, that. And then I told them, I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And the first thing they were like, why? Like, why'd you sign up for that, And then, like, I remember I just laughed. I was like, how do I explain this to you? Like, this is how I would put it. My journey in a short. Have you ever had a friend just like randomly pull up to you either at your house or you're going somewhere, and they just open the door and they're like, just get in.
Yeah.
And they're just like, don't ask questions. And you're like, where are we going? And they're like, just don't worry about it. Just get in.
Yeah.
And you get in.
Yeah.
I remember like in my time at the time, like no one had done walk from the West Coast. East Coast had those trips. I'd been on one, but that East Coast, West Coast is like out in the middle of nowhere in comparison to how far we are.
Yeah.
So like I didn't have this cool like connections, link, what's luck, this, that. The best way I would put it is like, if like Allah Ta'ala pulled up in a car, if I could say that, and said, just get in.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I'll make it worth it.
Yeah.
So now, depending on how cool or how close your friend is, if they say get in, some people you'd be like, never mind, we're not that cool. Yeah. But some people you'd be like, I'm more than willing to get in, and then those spontaneous things are fun. Honestly, when people talked about dedicating this, dedicating that, I didn't fully get it. I'm like, when you're 18, how much do you really know about life?
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Something just clicked, and I was like, this is for you, Allah Ta'ala. The rest of the stuff I'll figure out along the way. All I know is I'm going to do it and take me where you need to take me. And that just pulled at my heart. And alhamdulillah, so far, never looking back.
Alhamdulillah. Now that's
from LA to Jamia.
Yeah, man.
That's a story.
Yeah, because like growing up, it's like LA, man, those guys are crazy, man. Or like they're too laid back, and like even when I visit, they're like, oh, Udgy, man, you're so chill, man, you could fit right in, and try to like get me to like move there. Like they're like selling the land to me, and I was like, whoa, guys. Like,
the first time I went to LA was like 2022.
Okay.
And there was a virtual mulakat happening there.
Oh, okay.
Denver. And I felt this like entire different place inside of US.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This is what you get in US, so much variety.
Yes.
Like East Coast, you got a different culture. Yeah. Down south is different. And LA is all, completely different. Yeah, surfer vibe for sure, yeah. And
Murabbi, man, you give off those vibes, surfer vibes. Yeah. I told Murabbi, I was like, when I saw you, I was like, I'm an observant person. I was like, I knew you were from Canada. I was like right out the gate. I was like, yeah, it was that vibe, like free healthcare, I was like, oh, give me a hug,
Keep it nice.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. But I appreciate you, Murabbi. Thanks for sharing your story, man. Like, I know you get asked a lot, and I'm sure Murabbi Saab here does too. But it gives perspective, man, because
no one asked me.
No one asked you? Okay, wait, Murabbi Saab, we're about to ask. And the reality is, like, it puts into perspective because, like, I'm assuming you were born in America. I'm going out on a limb. Yeah. All right, cool. So the reality is, like, you're born in America, you're not thinking like that. And so, like, when we went on the East Coast, like, the guys that went, like, we were a little, I mean, I'm not saying we were like, bad guys, but we're a little rough around the edges, but that was like, when we went, it was like, whoa, like, this could be home. Like, we could do this. And like, some guys went, some guys didn't. And, they still had a connection and trust, with God, that wherever their life is going, like you said, that as long as they have that trust, then Allah Ta'ala is going to like shape their life,
So, from a national scope, what are the khuddam and, young minds in the Jama'at? What are they dealing with? What's going on?
Real life issues. I think there's two ways that really hurt us. First is there's this one video of Hazrat Khalif Masih Rabin Abdullah. I know the Jama'at put it up, and I love the title too. It's like the Achilles heel of self-righteousness, and it's basically I tore my Achilles heel, so that kind of hits home for me. But Hazrat Khalif Masih Rabin Abdullah, like in brief, in summary, said that one of the things that gets in our way is self-righteousness. This kind of like sitting on a high horse. Oh, he's not praying. How what kind of Ahmadi is he, or what is this person?
Yeah,
that's a form of takabbur. And I feel that takabbur of thinking, oh my God, we are supposed to be amazing. I'm amazing, God forbid. And that doesn't allow us to see real life issues and address them accordingly. So our youth, everybody's hurting. Like what's happening out in society, if we're not connected, I don't know if we were talking about it here or who else I was talking to about it, but one of the biggest crises within the Jama'at, if you want to use that word, is an identity crisis. Not knowing who we are as Ahmadis, what that worth is. And then we get lost. It's Dajjal, the business is booming. It's not just in Vegas. It's not just in Miami. It's everywhere. So, being part of that, and as an Ahmadi, as a human being, firstly, it's very difficult unless we're really grounded. So there's a lot of beauty. There's a lot of people have a lot of respect for, especially our youth, who are out there in the grind, in the thick of temptation, and still holding on to those values. I don't think that's short of a miracle. And there are those who have hurt, who have slipped. And then sometimes people, they're demonized, or people look at them differently. And I don't think that's right. So I think one thing, a perspective that really helped me, just being kind of traveling, seeing that, is that we really need to get off our high horse, have that empathy that, hey, these are human beings, these are kids, man. And they're dealing with what the Holy Prophet ﷺ basically said is the most biggest fitna, the hardest temptation time ever. Fitna Dajjal. So kind of have that human empathy that they're struggling and kind of approach them, letting them know that it's okay and that we pick them up.
So we asked some Khuddam across the country to give us the questions that they're thinking about. You know, what's going on? What do they want the answers to? And we got some responses, and we'll throw a few at Murabbi Sahib, see what he can come up with, and what the answer to those questions are, and how to kind of put our mindset around these difficult topics. So Ajibay, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the questions was, and I'm assuming it's probably in light of world events, you know, the situation that's happening overseas, and it's essentially the question is short. It's, don't you think that the world would be more peaceful without religion? So from your perspective and these issues you're seeing of like identity crisis and, you know, the other different things that are going on, what do you think? What kind of perspective can you provide for that?
So I remember first time I remember it was during COVID, I think, and someone just asked me a question, not on the same lens. And again, I might get a long-winded, but basically is like, if God is so good and so great, why do we have poverty? Why do we have suffering? And I don't have the facts in front of me, but I remember when I was looking through it, it was eye-opening for me, especially with the whole Palestine and Israel conflict, what's happening. You can't even watch all those videos. Yeah. And sometimes for some people, that grief is so powerful and they're like, how can God exist and watch this and stand aside? And I think that the question stems from that sentiment. Right. And I remember I was doing some data search. I don't want to just off the cuff, but I remember I came to an understanding after reading all the data that poverty in the world is not a God-made problem. It's a man-made problem. We have enough resources to go out multiple times to feed everybody so that not a single child would go hungry. The man-made problem is greed. We simply won't give those resources for XYZ reasons, but we have it all. We can multiple times feed the world over and end world hunger easily based off of resources. What resources is not allowing us to? The lack of a moral compass, lack of an understanding that we're also held accountable, right? People say absolute power corrupts absolutely, which we're watching in these countries. It's failed. It's where humans have gone wrong. It's not the absence of God, it's the absence of light. Yeah. That's what happens when you don't have God. This is a picture perfect example of what happens when you lose God. Yeah. So I would push back and say that where there is a sense of God consciousness, we would not stand alone. Like if you look through Twitter, look through X, look through any social media platform you're on, everyone's screaming the same thing. Yeah. How can we watch this and how can people be okay with it? Yeah. So it shows us corruption's at its core. And the only solution I think that I thought to is if there's no accountability on me to have an incentive for someone else at my expense to take care of them, I won't. Mm. I need to have that incentive. That incentive, the X factor there is genuinely the understanding that we are answerable to a creator. There's a set of conduct and code we need to live by. And if we don't, if you drive on the opposite end of the highway, there's a pretty good chance you're going to crash and fatally. That's what we're watching. The ends and the consequences of actions of human greed multiplied and compound interested, if you want to use that word, over years and years.
It feels like in a way, it's like, we're at the late stage of capitalism. Yeah. Right. It's seen its course and it was nice and fun. It's like a roller coaster that went up and everybody enjoyed it. And now it's taking the world with it towards a certain direction. And regarding this question, sometimes I think about a verse, and I'm sure Murabbi Sahib, you can elaborate more. When Hazrat Adam alayhi salam was created by Allah, Allah Ta'ala says that Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, that I am about to create a khalifa in the earth. And the angels respond, Atajalu man yufsidu fiha, that are you going to create someone who is going to create disorder? So the very coming of a prophet is religion. So when people ask that religion creates disorder, And, Allah Ta'ala has given the answer right in the beginning of the Holy Quran. This is like 22nd or 23rd verse. I don't want to say exactly, but it's somewhere in the first ruba, right? Somewhere in the beginning. So religion isn't what's creating the disorder, because Allah Ta'ala answers to this rhetorical question, right? That's there for our lesson in the Holy Quran. Allah Ta'ala answers that I know what you know not. There's an answer that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi rahimahullah has given. And Huzur mentions that this verse tells us that Allah Ta'ala is saying that if the disorder is created, it won't be because of religion. Right? If anything, religion comes to create peace. When Allah has sent a message which is peaceful, it's going to create a divide because certain parties in any country, in any place, in any region, don't want to follow it because they want the power. They want, they have that greed.
Yeah. Along with that issue, like I'm sure, like you said, Murabbi Saab, that based on like what's happening around the world, specifically in Palestine and Israel, that's like causing people to, doubt, at the same time face that truth, and then have to make the white and black decision. And one thing that, Hazur is advising is to pray. And, one of the questions that came up from, from Khadam is essentially, sometimes you get lazy. So how do you battle that laziness, especially in times like this, where that's probably the only place you're going to get real comfort from Allah Ta'ala, and everywhere else is just kind of going to give you like a temporary relief, and the only full comfort is from Allah Ta'ala. So how can the guys and battle that laziness?
I would say let's learn from alcoholics. The Prophet ﷺ actually gave this example. He actually taught us to learn from alcoholics. If someone builds a high tolerance for drinking, say 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots, it doesn't give them a buzz, what do? Do they stop drinking? Or do they amp how much they drink? Right? So if 3, 4 shots is not going to do it, they'll just keep going until they hit that buzz. The Muslim literally said, when a person hits a wall where praying, it's just not hitting it, you're not getting your fix. You don't decrease it, you increase it. Now, I get it. That sounds good. And in a way that's still like, you're like, wait, I don't feel like it now. How am I going to do more? So understanding, like if you're told, like, for example, if someone told you to crawl on your knees to the end of whatever room you're sitting in, you could probably do that. But if someone told you to keep crawling and keep crawling and keep crawling without telling you when to stop, you'd probably stop way further, way closer than you actually would think you can actually do.
Yeah.
As Muslim talked about, where this process of not feeling like to pray, getting lazy, it's stages. So, for example, if the first shot, second shot, now third shot in, and someone gets a buzz, if you know where at that level you're at, then you're able to push. So with prayer, it's the same thing. First of all, I think it's understanding that it's natural. A Jama'at student actually asked Hazur about that. Like, Hazur, what if, sometimes you don't have that concentration to prayer all the time? Hazur literally said, if you had it all the time, you would literally be a prophet. It's human. It's not good in the beginning. You're groggy. You don't want to wake up for Fajr. You're like, how do I get past this? Understanding that it's a phase. And when Allah Ta'ala is very compassionate, if we put in even a minuscule amount of effort, more than we're doing right now, Allah Ta'ala will bless and exponentially. Like if I crawl to Allah Ta'ala, He will walk. If I walk, He will run. He will always be 2 steps more energy, infinitely more than I will give.
Yeah, I think a lot
more. That's what it's about.
I think a lot of people, I would share the sentiment, like, if you start missing your prayers, like you become shameful and ashamed that like what is like God gonna think of me? But at least that what I've read is the longer you wait, the interval, the larger it gets, the more difficult it's gonna be to jump back in. And so the reality is, like you said, you got to keep trying, but knowing that Allah Ta'ala is like, He's gonna accept you for that effort you put in. And I guess like because of the standards of like just what in this country, let's say for example, of like what hard work is.
Yeah.
Like this religion isn't supposed to be a burden for us. So praying 5 times a day, Shaitan creates this monumentous idea of it. But when we break it down to minutes, it's like, it's nothing, right? It's not a lot of time. But like,
a couple minutes,
it just has been like amplified. And in a country where everything's so quick, it's hard to convince yourself that the type of effort you would put in at a job or at school to like excel, like that's worth like the success you'll get from your grades or a promotion. But putting that into perspective with praying, it's like I think once we're able to make that transition, then the small steps we take, like we'll realize that they actually matter.
It's about that coming back. That's what I told that guy. I still remember a friend of mine in LA. He said that to me while I was in Jama'at. He's like, man, I've just stopped praying. And I was like, why? And he's like, literally, I don't know how to come back. Like I've done X, Y, Z, and I don't think I could look Allah Ta'ala in the face. So if there's anything in this vibe that you get, is that Allah Ta'ala is more forgiving, has a bigger heart than your dirtiest and biggest secret.
Yeah, there's this really beautiful line from Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi, rahimahullah. And he says, Islam is a religion of hope. How crazy is that? Right? At every time that a person feels down, Islam reminds us that it's fine, keep going, get up. The first verse of the Holy Quran that we repeat, in front of every single surah is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And the two principal attributes of Allah Ta'ala that we are reminded about every single time is that Allah Ta'ala will forgive you, and He will forgive you again and again and again and again. Allah Ta'ala is most gracious, right? That He gives you without asking. And He is ever merciful, so you can, repeatedly Allah Ta'ala forgives you and gives you more than you even deserve. So that's our God. And you can
actually want to highlight that. I feel like I genuinely believe in my heart that there are genuine saints of Allah Ta'ala or close people to Allah Ta'ala in US. I believe that Allah Ta'ala is as accessible here as He is in Mecca, as He is in Rabwa, Qadian, UK, Islamabad. We have the same access.
Yeah.
It's just that we get in our own way. And sometimes we give up things that we should not give up. And I think it's okay to mess up. What I don't think is okay to think that we're not worthy of going back. I think that's unforgivable because like we hurt ourselves more with that than we could do with any of our sins. Take your pick.
I appreciate you, Murabbi Saab, for answering those questions and taking time out. I know.
I appreciate the conversation. It was good. I'm glad we got to, chit chat about this. It's a good reminder for myself too. Sometimes you just need to hear it from others and it clicks different ways.
Yeah. I appreciate your time. Jazakallah, Murabbi Saab.
Jazakallah. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
So Murabbi Saab, we talked to a few guys. Talked to Ishfaq by Naib Sadr Saab, talked to Murabbi Saab, Tariq Naseem Saab. Yep. Got the East Coast perspective, got the West Coast perspective, got some light on, what guys are going through and around the country, answer some questions. We kind of touched upon how Khilafat, is like a foundation for us. And most importantly that, in this country, it's okay for us to make some mistakes because we're inherently human, but that as long as we're fighting to get back up and to keep moving forward, and leaning on our brothers and thinking progressively and staying linked to the Jama'at, that, we can move forward no matter what kind of craziness is going on in the world and, in this country. So alhamdulillah, it's been a true pleasure chatting with you, Murabbi Saab, and we're gonna carry it on and
inshallah,
and have some good laughs and see where this takes us, man.
We're gonna bring some old friends, some new friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Continue talking, inshallah.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So until next time, MKA Vibe, podcast for the people, by the people. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum.